It's not a regular incident when we have three Johns on our shows. Today we have John Espley with connection skills. I have John Treleaven. John Espley, there have been times when we've been referred to as John squared. So,
Hmm.
so here we are, John tripled.
And we're all squares, so that works.
And we are honing in on a missing piece of the trade diversification discussion. This entire podcast is hosted by the Trade Committee of the Saanich Peninsula Chamber of Commerce. John and I, and the three Johns, have had extensive experience within the chamber ecosphere, and chambers continue across the region to provide extraordinary service to the business community. We today are going to be talking about what we have identified, we think, as a gap in the trade diversification continuum. And that's on the sales side. There's tons of stuff around policy, tons of stuff around process. There are tons of resources. But how do you get a sale? John Treleaven, what do you think about that? This is a favorite area of yours.
Oh, it certainly is. I had a posting in Hong Kong years ago and worked very closely with the Hong Kong Trade Development Council, like the Trade Commissioner Service. Len Dunning was the formative executive director, and he kept lecturing his staff on their role and what the outcome was. And one of the lines he always used was, "Nothing happens in business till somebody buys something somebody else is selling." In order to assure his staff, who were, like the Trade Commissioner Service, 30 offices abroad, dealing with companies abroad and companies in Hong Kong, that, yeah, there was a lot of process involved, but the end product of what they did was to facilitate a business transaction by a Hong Kong company. Very simple thought. But I'm watching the press releases and whatnot around Prime Minister's trip. I think Mr. Champagne, the finance minister, is in China today. And much of the talk is around sectors, priority sectors. I listen in vain for the language of a customer, a buyer, an investor, a technology source, and how they can be linked with a Canadian company that wants to do business with them. So in this conversation, I'd like to reinforce that. And John, with the role you have played with the Canadian Professional Sales Association, an association I knew well. My father was a member
Oh boy.
years and years ago, my late father. But I knew several of the people who were running that association. I'm looking for a discussion of the mechanics. Why are sales leads important?
Yeah.
Many economists don't think they are.
Yeah. Well,
And
John
we
Espley,
need
what do
them.
you think? Let's let the third John have a shot.
Well, I think at any level, whether you're talking small business all the way up to international level, the one thing that I tend to see is people trying to promote or sell their wares as opposed to taking an interest in the needs of potential clients. And it sounds simple to say that, right? But it's a fundamental problem. You need to understand what a potential client, whether that be a country down to a small business, whatever they need. Now, how can you fulfill it with the product or services that you offer? So, A, you do your research first, obviously, but you need to talk to those people. You need to discover what those needs are. And then, from a sales training perspective, you can propose your product or services in a manner that will fit their needs. It's like trying to sell a 5-ton pickup to somebody that really only needs a little electric commuter car. And I see that, especially in the international stage. We've got all these big, wonderful things. That's great. But what are their real needs? And we have smaller companies that, to your point, John T, to your point, that can service a lot of smaller needs for these other companies that are creating other products. That's another thing we see where we're meshing multiple products together to form one larger product, right? Canada has been great in that. In fact, we have some producers. I'll go back, John Juricic, you'll remember this, Kermana days. They didn't create build products. They put products together to create a product that worked for the marine or aircraft industry,
Sure.
right? And this is the research, this is the connection that I don't see going on at all levels. So does that answer your question, John T?
Yes, what I would add is that the Trade Commissioner Service, in the international context, the Trade Commissioner Service, as you know, offers a Canadian business 160 offices around the world at no cost. And one way or another, those offices are in a position to do what you've suggested, to understand the demand pull in markets abroad. And as you know only too well, John Espley, the further you are away from the supplier, the more important a very strong personal trust is in the buying decision. Because in an international sale, in any sale, both the supplier and the purchaser have something at risk, especially if it's B2B business. We're not selling hula hoops here.
No.
And the Trade Commissioner Service offers the ability to leverage the contacts they have in Sao Paulo to the benefit of companies in Canada that have expressed an interest of selling there.
Yeah. So, okay, go ahead, John.
Go ahead, John.
No, Espley. You know what, guys? I'm just going to call you by your last names. Go
Sure.
ahead, Espley.
One of the points to that, John, is in my sales career and when I teach people this, one of the things, your job, everyone thinks it's, I've got to push my product out, right? But your job is to make, you start that relationship, but it's to make the person who's buying for that company, your potential customer.
Yeah.
Your job is to make them look good. Your job is to make them
Absolutely.
successful. Because if you do, A, you get the sale, and B, you get loyalty, reoccurring sales. Or when there's 6 companies that sell the same product or service as you, how do you rise above those? Again, not about, oh, gee, I need to sell 6 of mine. No, it's how can I make that buyer, that company, the hero? And if I focus on that, I will sell my product and I will get that loyalty that we need.
Do you want a specific example? Years ago in Brazil, a gleam in the eye of the government was to establish an aircraft industry in São José dos Campos. And so Embraer was formed to build newly designed planes. They contacted all of the world's jet engine manufacturers. The only company in the world, a jet engine manufacturer in the world, that replied was Pratt & Whitney from Montreal. All Embraer planes for a very long time were designed around the Pratt & Whitney product. They may not be today. I don't know.
Because they made what? Did they reach out? Is that the message?
They responded.
Yeah.
They took the inquiry from this Brazilian government agency seriously. Well, good.
Okay, let's bring this now up to today. All right. Sorry. I'll get rid of that. So I'm going to start again. So let's bring that story and anecdote up to today, because between the 3 of us, we got a tiny bit of experience. We end up mentoring younger business people quite frequently. They're all today about how does AI impact my sales funnel? And it's very convenient, the answer for them to be, wow, I don't have to talk to anybody. I actually don't have to do any phone calls. And in fact, you can do that. You can set it up that way. And as it turns out, recently, I have been emphasizing that you could probably get maybe more leads. Maybe you can generate some more programming that can generate more names. But fundamentally, you got to pick up the phone and talk to somebody. Oh my gosh. Espley, what do you think about that? Have you been approached by those kind of folks?
Yeah, and again, my consulting business name, Connection Skills, I chose that for a reason. There is no better way to build a business relationship than starting off face to face, shaking a hand. After that, you can do all the technology follow up, Zoom, Teams, whatever. But once you've made that connection, you've established not only the beginnings of a relationship, but you've established a communication style, because everyone's style is different. And I teach this all the time. When you're using technology, let's say emails and texts and all the rest of it, if that person at the other end has never met you, has never talked to you, it doesn't understand your style, they're going to read that with a different voice in their head. We all, when we're reading something, there's a voice that reads it to us, right?
Mhm.
If they've talked to you, if they know you, if they know your style, especially if it's humor, and I believe humor is a great thing, even at high levels. Humor, we've seen the politicians finally getting that.
Yes.
If they don't understand your humor, they're going to read something completely different than you typed it out, than you sent it. So try whenever possible to have Zoom or Teams is the next best thing if you can, especially if we're talking international, you might not be able to get there. But if you ever can get there, go to a conference, go to a meeting, whatever. Establish that human connection, then you can follow up. The other thing with AI that concerns me going forward, AI looks at facts because that's all it has, right? It's going to look at the facts and say, okay, company A might be able to use your product. Company B will not. When in fact, if you've been around and investigating, I've had so many instances in my career with myself or clients where they've been able to sell to company B in one form or another in an unusual way or in a way that wasn't predicted, right? How many times have we seen a product used? Pharmaceuticals are a perfect example of this. A product used in a different way than it was planned, right? Right? So,
Mhm.
it's just commonplace. So I've seen sales like that as well, and you're not going to get that from AI because AI can't predict that. AI doesn't understand that. It can only see facts, and sometimes if it isn't something that's published or said out there, it doesn't exist. That's why you meet someone, you talk to them, you learn about their company, you learn everything they're doing, and you find ways. And even it might be such that, okay, I can't provide the big picture to you, but I still can get 10% of your business for this part of my product or service. And
Yeah.
if I get enough of those, I'm doing great. So that's sales is nuanced. And that is something that we're not being taught. It's not being taught in business
Yeah.
schools.
And there are several other points to make here. I mean, use AI for sure. I mean, you mentioned it, John E. Market research is critically important. You've got to have market intelligence, and the trade network can help you do that. But I ran an international business opportunity center in Ottawa for 3 years, which took trade leads from posts abroad and tried to find Canadian companies who were interested in transacting. And what did we learn? I mean, all the websites talk about supply and demand, capacity, priority sectors. But business is about supply, demand, and a moment in time when it comes to a company. And to learn about the moment in time, AI won't give it to you. You can't get it from a website. You got to be on the phone talking to the company saying, well, what's your back order position? Are you going to be able to, supply? And that's a part of the human connection that you're talking about. I completely agree. Some people think that all we need is the perfect program and everything will match. No,
Never.
the
I
matches are
know
important.
I know of other examples on the international side or on the large scale side where companies and the government supported groups there are trying to sell the big main resources. Okay, your company needs this resource, but I know stories where somebody talking to those companies says, "Can you talk me through your production? Talk me through that. How you actually get if we sell your resource, how you get there?" And those companies, Canadian companies that weren't selling the resource did have ways to totally increase the efficiency of the potential client's production facility. So that wasn't nobody was looking for that service. Nobody was looking for those tools, but they were there. They talked to them. They learned about that. Now all of a sudden they have their product or service helping those companies sell or increase their production. And then hopefully we're selling them the natural resources, which is what they need is the base. But there's many different parts, and I don't think we look at that enough.
So, John,
I ran the Saskatchewan Trade and Export Partnership, their export promotion agency, for 5 years. And we did custom market research for our member companies, international. We also delivered qualified trade leads to member companies apart from custom research. What was our biggest source of trade leads? It was, from time to time, trade posts would be in touch with us. The biggest source was when our researchers were phoning companies in Lima or Brussels or whatever, as the Saskatchewan government, they thought we were, so you get credibility. And they develop a relationship even on the phone because they were talking about a specific product to a specific company. And at a certain point, the step researcher would say, well, are there any other products that you're sort of wanting to source over the next, period of time? Well, I think STEP delivered like 5,000 qualified trade leads to its member companies last year. Most of those were generated by being in touch with a company abroad that had a specific need and then growing a relationship. Now, think about how much more powerful it is if the Canadian consulate in Sao Paulo, who can actually go and have lunch with a guy, makes those kind of connections.
So, John Espley,
the other side of this, John, with your CPSA, how many qualified leads? Is there a number of qualified leads that you sort of need to ensure you've got one or two good, probable customers? Did you do any research in that?
Well, yeah, but that I have to say that does vary depending on the product and the market. So
absolutely.
In some cases it's 50 to 1, some cases it's 100 to 1. And then the other thing you look at is cycles. That's why we talk about the sales funnel. You always have to keep that full for that reason. Sales cycle, like one of my clients there, Canada's Best Pension Plan. The sales cycle for working with companies there is very long. Right. You start a relationship early and you build and you slowly work with that. So you have to understand, and a lot of people don't understand that either. They think they're hired as sales. Great. The next day I'm going to make a sale. Well, no, the next day you're going to start on the process of making a sale. That might take 6 months, might take a year, depending on the market you're in. So you do need to understand your sales cycle and then understand the market research. You keep mentioning it, John T, and you're right on that. Understanding how big is the potential market for our product, and that'll tell you how many clients and what the what it's going to take, and then paying attention to your, I'll say, competitors and colleagues. Sometimes they're actually colleagues, what they're doing, because that'll also indicate what is the challenge to your position. Do you have a very powerful position? Your product and service is just that much better at this time and date, or are there 6 of you on a even plane? Well, that changes that challenge again, right? So it's understanding the whole. We talk about nuance. It's understanding the whole piece.
We're in the middle of a trade diversification drive by the government of Canada, right? Mr. Carney has said he wants to divert $300 billion in sales to markets beyond the United States over the next 10 years. You just gave the ratio of 50 to 1 to get leads to get to a customer. We can't afford that. We will never diversify Canada's trade to match what is needed. Let's take the $300 billion mark. We got to do something different. And my thesis is that we've got to take fuller advantage of the mechanisms that we have, the chambers of commerce, the consultants, the network of trade commissioners.
Yes.
Has to be driven by business, not them driving business.
It's a great way to end our story. John Espley, thank you very much. This has been very helpful, and we need to connect again in the near future, because the world is changing. Well, since we chatted, it's probably changed.
Absolutely. John, thank you very much.
Take care to both of you.
Always
Bye
good
for
to
now.
see both of you.
You bet. Take care, guys.